What is going on, guys? Hope you all had a good Christmas. I guess you guys are going to be wondering why we ain't uploaded the advert video, which we said we was going to do. We are going to get round to it, but the last few weeks, probably the last month, we've just kind of lost a bit of motivation for the whole making video thing for many reasons. And I think after this video, maybe we will do a video then to say what kind of is the reason for that, I guess. Yeah, I think it's probably best to keep this video on track, on topic. And Cody is also not here. She's at work today or this evening. So it's just me again, guys. But I thought that because the end of the year is now on us, I thought it would be a good video to look back on the year with the whole COVID thing, and I suppose with hindsight, just talk about what President Duterte and the government in the Philippines did right, and also what they did wrong. With obviously the ability of hindsight, which we didn't have at the time. So for anyone that's new, just watching this video, that hasn't watched us before, we was in the Philippines from mid-February to I think the end of March. So we was there in the middle of the whole lockdown in Luzon and all the palaver that we had to deal with leading up to leaving the country. So the first, I suppose it's best to start from the beginning. So I think the first thing, I think, goes without saying that the government got right in the Philippines was the whole locking down the country. At the time, I didn't really know what to make of it. Like, me and Cody both thought, wow, it's a bit extreme, because obviously when we left England, there was like, we were seeing the same videos that everyone saw around the world, right? So we were seeing videos of people in China like standing up, and then they would literally just tip straight over and fall on their face. I presume they was dead, frothing at the mouth, and it just like really gruesome like videos that kind of made the virus seem like it was like a zombie type of virus or something like that. I remember watching it when I was in work, and I was like, what the hell is this? And yeah, so when we flew to the Philippines, there was still like no like difference in day-to-day life. I remember that, and that was mid-February. So you didn't have to wear face masks to fly, you didn't have to, like, no social distancing, there was none of that. It didn't even exist in February. So we landed in the Philippines, and then obviously we was going about our business, traveling up and down. So we didn't pay any attention to the news. We wasn't looking at any news to see anything about the virus or anything. So when, like, I think it must have been like the middle of March, I think. Something tells me the middle of March when the Luzon lockdown happened. So yeah, we thought it was a bit extreme. Didn't really know why they was going that extreme that early, and that was just with the information that we had at the time. So looking back on it now, it's been proven that they was completely right to lock down when they did. In fact, I think they was one of the, or if not the first country to lock down, I think. But obviously the problem is, because of the Luzon lockdown, and we did exactly the same thing, by the way. So the lockdown got announced, and what did everyone do? We all left the capital, and that is probably what led to the Philippines being in the position that it is in today, with the whole, it's just, the Philippines has got like a reputation for being really, there's a lot of COVID everywhere, and like that's the worst hit country I think in Asia. But there's no question government was right to act that fast to lock down. So I think that's a big thumbs up from, I think, everybody right now. However, with locking down come another bad part. I suppose you can call it, what would you call it? I suppose like every action has a reaction, and the reaction to locking down was the fact that a lot of people got stranded, us included. I don't know, it like at the time it just felt like, so I remember I was just really confused. I just didn't understand why we was in the position that we was in, and it was because of the lockdown. So we left Manila, we flew to Iloilo because we thought, oh, if it's only a month lockdown, I'd rather be locked down on Iloilo because that's close to our house. For anyone that's new, we bought a house in the Philippines and it should be built now. So we was hoping to move in. So we thought, okay, we'll do our lockdown in Iloilo and then we can just move straight into the house anyway, so it wouldn't be a problem. That's what we thought. So when we landed in Iloilo, we got hit with like there was a, whatever hotel we stayed at, or they wouldn't let us leave the hotel because we come from Manila basically. So we had to spend like 3 days inside the hotel room. We didn't have any Wi-Fi and we couldn't go out. So it was, to say the least, it was miserable for that 3 days. But then it became apparent that we couldn't leave to come to the capital again to fly back to England. So my mum and Cody's mum and family and friends and stuff were saying, right, the UK government are saying you have to leave, you have to come back to the UK. And I said, I can't, basically. And they didn't understand why. I think like my mum was watching the same sort of news for the Philippines and stuff, and she said, oh, the airport's open, like you can fly out, you can fly back. I said, yeah, the airport, Manila airport's open, but we can't get there. And that was the problem. So that wasn't just for foreigners, that was for locals as well. So there would have been locals, Filipinos, that went on vacations. I don't know, maybe, let's just say, for example, people went to Boracay, locals went to Boracay, right? Like, locals are in Boracay, maybe they're flown from Manila, gone to Boracay. Next minute, lockdown. So no one can leave the island. They've then stranded people that didn't have money to, like the hotels are expensive, food, just day-to-day living is expensive. And a lot of people got trapped all around the country, foreigners and locals. So it was like, not only was we in a lockdown, but we also was like, just trying to work out how, because it became apparent very quick that we made a bad choice in leaving Manila at that time, because all the internal airports closed. So the airport in Iloilo, that closed. Cataclan had every airport stopped all internal flights in the Philippines. And after that, it wasn't maybe a few days or a few weeks, the boats stopped as well. So there was literally no way on or off the island, any island. So that just was like I remember at the time, I didn't understand why you would be saying on the news that Ninoy airport is open for this amount of days so you can leave the country if you want, but there was no way to get to the capital. It was completely, every island was completely locked off. So that was like a downside for me. That was something that they got wrong, because they should have made it, I don't know how, they should have made it possible for anybody that was not from that island or city or town. They should have made it possible for those people to either do a quarantine on wherever they was, do a quarantine, and then you can get on a boat or fly out. But everyone was stuck everywhere. If you remember back, guys, Cebu airport was crazy. There was people sleeping on floors. People didn't have anywhere to go. I remember just seeing like big crowds outside the airport where they was trying to get in, but the people that were inside the airport probably wanted to come out, but everything was just locked down, right? So they just couldn't do anything. So no one was moving. So I think they could have handled that a lot better and set up something to enable people to get to where they needed to be. Because I remember also Lola Tessie, she had someone working for her who went to visit a friend before the lockdown, because the lockdown just got dumped on people in Luzon with like a day or two's notice. So she got trapped wherever she was, and she couldn't come back to see her kids or nothing. And also a guy at work who's just recently come back to the UK, he was in the Philippines, stuck there, and his wife was staying with him in Dumaguete, and she was originally from Surigao, and her children were in Surigao, and she was separated from them for probably about 7 or 8 months, and she only recently just managed to get back. So that was like a huge problem that I don't feel was addressed. So that was a bit of a thumbs down for me on not allowing people to leave and to get to where they needed to be. Another good thing that the Philippines got right was shutting down the borders. So shutting down the borders, guys, was key. Like, it was absolutely key. When I look back now, at the time when all the borders got shut, I thought, whoa, that's a bit crazy, right? That's a bit extreme. And I reckon that a lot of people in the West also thought, whoa, what are they shutting the borders for? That's a bit crazy. But it's been proven that it was the best move that they could have made at that time. And that was really early. Just to put things into a bit of context, I guess. When the Philippines closed their borders, like, the UK never officially closed their borders. And that would tell you why we've got like 55,000 deaths in the country compared to the Philippines, who has about 5,000-ish, give or take. So that was absolutely key for helping the country keep their own problems like suppressed. Because we just, in England, they should have shut the borders. Like, I remember, guys, yeah, when we flew back, I think it was April by the time we got back, we just walked straight through the airport. Now, bear in mind, we left the Philippines, we went to Abu Dhabi, and then from Abu Dhabi, we flew back to Heathrow, London. And when we landed in London, we walked straight through. The whole airport was like a ghost town. There was nobody there. Straight onto the public transport and back to home. There's not one person who asked us where we're going. There wasn't one person asking for us to isolate. There was nothing. All that time, while every day more and more people flying into the UK, the Philippines had locked their borders, so no one was transporting the virus in. That was so key that I can't even explain. Maybe if the UK had done that, because we're also an island, same as the Philippines, so it's easier for islands to lock down. Australia did it, New Zealand did it. They have barely any cases. Like, when they see like a little spike in cases in Australia and New Zealand, it's usually like 5 or 6 cases or 2 or 3 cases. So because they took action nearly as early as the Philippines, they're fairly back to normality now. Not completely, but fairly. The UK is a disaster, let's be honest. Absolute disaster. We're in like a tier 4 lockdown now, which is basically a proper lockdown, give or take. The only thing that we're allowed to do is to go to work. That's it. Everything else is closed. All the shops, restaurants closed. So that was key for me. Big thumbs up from the government for doing that. But on the flip side, the downside of what the government probably did, it's not, I'm not going to say downside like that, but it just wasn't a fault for everybody. So people that we've already spoke about, people that got trapped in certain parts of the country, but also with that there was a lots of hotels closing. So people were already trapped and they couldn't leave, and then lots of people were being kicked out of their hotels all across the country, all across the Philippines. And Cody was like reading lots of stories in like on Facebook and stuff, and that put a lot of worry in her specifically. She was so scared of being kicked out of our hotel where we were staying. So was I as well. I didn't know what we was going to do. If we got kicked out, I was thinking, boy, we're going to be on the street. Jeez, I didn't know what we was going to do. But we spoke to the lady on reception, and she said straight away, nope, that's not happening here. Because I guess it was the Iloilo local government. They instantly nipped that in the bud straight away, as we say, and they ruled that out happening. No one is getting kicked out of any hotels, is what the government said in Iloilo, like the mayor. So that alleviated a huge stress. It's bad enough having money stresses because you don't know how long you're going to be there for. And I think by this point it became apparent that we wasn't just going to be there for 2 weeks or a month, whatever it was, because I think the lockdown in Manila got extended. So we didn't know how long we was going to be stuck there, and I was kind of at the point where I thought this is probably going to be maybe 2 months, maybe 3. Turns out it was probably nearer 5, 6. But yeah, the whole people getting kicked out of their hotels, that was a bit of a sour taste for a lot of people to swallow. But that's just another what's the word? That is like another good point about Filipino people, and we owe you a massive debt, by the way, because I spoke about the way I kind of felt, and probably Cody as well, felt a little bit like abandoned by everyone kind of at that time. I remember we were trying to ring the British Embassy in the Philippines to see what we could do, like how they could help, and that just went to answer phone. On the UK government webpage it said just to ring up the embassy, which we was doing, no answer. So we was just kind of like just forgotten about, and then we felt kind of forgotten about by the Philippines government as well. But when we felt that bad about things is when some of the best stuff happened. Because if you remember, you might or might not have seen it, there's like some locals from Iloilo, and they brought us like food and stuff like that just to kind of like cheer us up, which was really nice because we was having a really shitty time at that point. Didn't really show it on camera or nothing, but you still have like your worries and stuff off camera. So that like was really nice just to know that things are going bad, but there's always people that actually do want to help you, do care about how you're feeling and stuff. So that was really nice. But yeah, I feel like people were just kind of forgotten, and that goes for locals as well. Any like Filipinos that went on vacation, they probably felt the same, just felt like just kind of abandoned a little. But that was a bit of a downside to the whole pandemic fiasco. Oh. So the next good point where I think the government got right in the Philippines was the fact that they gave money to the Department of Tourism to try and help us out, all the stranded people. Now, I saw, when we got that flight out of Iloilo, I saw a mixture of foreigners, and I also saw quite a lot of Filipinos on that plane that were just either in their own families or just on their own, or So that just goes to show that it wasn't just a foreign people problem, it was everybody. And I think I'm gonna say this on camera because I'm pretty sure it's true. I think that the Iloilo government, local government, I think that they done the very most that any other province in the Philippines or any other government, local government in the Philippines did for people that were stuck trying to get off of the islands. So if you remember, in Cebu, the Department of Tourism had flights that were like sweeper flights, I think they were called, and they was taking people to Manila. They had to pay for those. They had to pay like, I think it was maybe 10,000 pesos per person for the sweeper flight, something like that. Now, at the time, I didn't really know what to expect. I thought that we was also gonna have to pay 10,000. So I was fully prepared to pay. But we asked the Department of Tourism in Iloilo, like, how much are the flights? And she said, oh, they're free. And I was like, wow, like the Iloilo government went beyond, like, to help us. They really, like, I can't thank them enough, because money was a problem. Like, I know a lot of people think foreigners are rich and stuff like that, and I've addressed it loads of times. Like, it was a massive problem for us, especially not knowing how long you're going to be there for. So to find out that that flight was going to be free was such a big help that I don't think you can really put it into words, because I know that it's, some people might say, oh, it's only 10,000, but that's 10,000 times 2. There's 2 of us, so that's 20,000 peso just to get back to Manila. And then we had to pay, let me try and work it out in my head. We had to pay around about 120,000 peso each to leave Manila for the UK. Add on to that the 20k that we might have paid for the Iloilo to Manila flight, and that is a serious amount of money, guys. Like, and then what topped it off was they had a free shuttle bus to the airport. You had to meet at a certain location at a certain time. Naturally, being Coast and Uncharted, we missed that. And I was just kind of, because we had so many bags, camera gear and stuff like that, I wanted to just get a taxi because I thought it would have been more comfortable. Loads of electronic stuff, cameras and stuff like that. So I wanted to get a taxi, but on the morning, because it got set up so last minute, we basically didn't know we was going to get the flight until about 12 o'clock at night the previous night. So we literally had like 5 or 6 hours before we had to be up ready for the bus. So I just assumed we were just going to get a taxi, but when we tried to call a taxi, there was no taxis. And the hotel staff said, you can use our own taxi, but we're not sure if you're going to get through the checkpoints. So it was just like a crazy dash in hoping to get through the checkpoints to the airport. And then once we made it, we landed in Manila, and as we're walking back to pick up our bags and stuff like that in Manila, there was the Department of Tourism for Iloilo also handed out food, water, little cakes, because we hadn't eaten, and they gave them to every single person that got off of that plane. So as bad as that situation was, I feel that the Department of Tourism Iloilo done everything they could possibly do to make it all right for us, to make it as little as an inconvenience as possible. And for that, along with the people that dropped us some food and all the messages we was getting, I don't think we'll ever be able to really repay for that. And I think that we will spend many years reminding people just what the Iloilo Department of Tourism government done for us personally. And hopefully when we get the chance to go back, we can try and shed some light on that and give the credit where credit was due, because that was an unbelievable amount of help that we didn't expect, and we're just eternally grateful for that, for sure. So I'm trying to think now of the next bad point where I think the government might have got something wrong. Now, this next point, guys, is one of the biggest reasons for me personally as to kind of why I kind of haven't wanted to make videos this past, I don't know, month, maybe even longer than that, to be honest. And sorry guys, let me just get you in focus. And what it is the whole issue with the border. Now, this is a really awkward subject for me personally, probably for Cody as well, because obviously I agree with the whole shutting the borders, but I feel like okay, so let me start from a different angle, because it's really awkward to put into words. But say like the world economy is going crazy right now. So the Philippines, their GDP is just going crazy. Like everyone's losing money, poverty all over the world. So I think that for people like us, we're not like your common tourists now. We used to be, but I think we've kind of evolved that whole issue, because now we're more like investors now, because we bought the condo, and we're, as bad as it is economically, financially speaking, in the Philippines for millions of people, we're still paying into the economy. So we're still helping. We're still what's the word? We're still a asset, I guess, to the country. And I don't feel like much of an asset at the moment in terms of I don't feel like our interests, which are also the Philippines' interests really, because I imagine there's quite a lot of people like us where there's overseas foreigners that are putting money into the country, and it would have been nice for us to be at the front of the queue to be able to come back, because it's not just like when we come to the Philippines, it's not just for tourism purposes. It used to be, don't get me wrong, we used to just come so we can travel the country, see the beaches, blah de blah, but the situation's evolved since that. Now that the house is an issue, so like we've got no idea of when we can come back, and I don't want you guys to feel like, oh, like, you know, poor you, why should you be allowed back and other people not, and stuff like that. And it's more because that's not how I see it, but as an investor to the country, as someone who has an input, is like bringing overseas foreign money. Remember, we don't do YouTube to earn money to then put that back into the country. We work in the UK and put that money into the Philippines. So it would have been nice for the government to acknowledge that there are many people in our situation who are paying for like property or investment in the country, and we can't come and check on that investment. Like, there's no way for us to check on anything that we're paying for. And obviously we pay every month. So it would have been nice, and I feel like that's a really bitter pill for us to swallow, that like the way we all see it is we've bought a condo nearly 2 years ago and we haven't actually been able to move in yet. Now, I know it's finished and it should be ready for us to move into, but I feel like the government really should be trying to get people like us into the country, and it could be under any sort of restrictions. Like, I'm not the sort of person, me and Cody both, we're not the sort of people that want to come back for selfish reasons and to put people at risk. It's really not about that. Like, for example, the UK was the first country in the world to allow a vaccine to, so I think like 1 million people have been vaccinated against COVID in the UK. And it would have been nice for the Philippines government to come out and say, we're now letting foreigners in who have been vaccinated only. Like, that would have been progress, because for me, coming to the Philippines, it's not so much as coming to the Philippines just for like to make videos and stuff like that. I need to come to the Philippines for my own mental state, and like just because it's what I enjoy. And now obviously we have the house there, so that's another chapter in our life that's gonna start. And I just wish that as like I feel like it's like you know, like when you take out like a phone contract, or you rent a car, or you get a finance on a car, right? And you've got to pay monthly, and you become over so many years, you become like a valuable member, a valuable customer. That's what I feel we should kind of be in that bracket. Not like your normal tourist that want to come, but more like a valued customer, because we're inputting in the economy, right? And I just don't get that feeling like that our interests are also being considered. I think that's the word. Because I would really like to be able to have the opportunity to come back to the Philippines, and even if they said on arrival you have to have a COVID test before you even land in the Philippines, and then you have to do another test when you reach the Philippines, and you have to quarantine for 2 weeks, I would do it. Every time I left, like if I left Manila and went to Iloilo, I'd do another 14 days quarantine. Like, I would do every single safety procedure just to be able to go and see the house. And at the moment, there is no news on when the borders are open, or when we can even go and see like our investment, you know. And that's like quite hard, because that's all I look forward to every year. And you know, I just don't see much light at the end of the tunnel on that aspect. And I suppose there's a lot of people that feel the same. I mean, I was hoping that we could come back in October this year, because I thought it might be semi-normal by then, but it doesn't seem that way. And obviously it's like the 28th or 29th today of December, and I was thinking, oh well, maybe the first 2-3 months of 2021, maybe things will get better then and we can come back. But I don't even know if that's going to be even remotely possible at the moment. So, you know, I just think that if foreigners that are married to Filipinos can come back, then I believe that investors that have a financial commitment to the Philippines should also be allowed to come back. And it's just really unfortunate that things are the way as they are at the moment. because, you know, every day me and Cody speak about it. Oh, the Philippines house, what we're gonna do, and we've just got no idea on when we can actually even visit and go and see it and see the progress. So that is a really big, that's probably our biggest problem right now, with like just not being too happy with like making videos and stuff, because that's over our head. maybe I'll do a video next on that, and like some of the problems that we have, and you know, some of our concerns and stuff. But I think that issue would, like, I know that there's an investor's visa that you can get, but when I checked it online, it had like a limit of an asset or an investment worth $60,000 US, and our condo doesn't cost $60,000 US, so I don't think we can get that visa either. So that was like another kick to the head for us. But I think like those 3 good points and those 3 bad points, looking back, I think those are the most, like the biggest problems and the biggest positives to take out of the whole experience. I mean, I don't doubt for a minute that there ain't more. There's definitely going to be more, but I just feel like those are the main ones, I think, that I can think of. But I'd love to know like what your guys' take on it is, and whether you agree and why, or if you don't agree, then why. And if I've missed any out that were also big problems, then I'd love to know what you guys also think on the subject. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I know it's been a bit of a downbeat, I guess, video, because you was hoping for the advert. I will get onto it, guys. I'm just got to try and get my mojo back. But hope you all had a nice Christmas, and I hope you're all doing much better now than you was previously in the year. And I will see you again very soon.